Yeah, so a lot of people ask me this, right? So the question is, do you have to have a life goal? And I mean, we have a view on that from our organization, but we wanted to first study how do people set goals? How far do they set goals? What challenges they perceive? So we went ahead and did the research in 2014. We also have presented a paper in Turkey in the same year. So we had a sample of, it was again done back home in India. We had a sample of over 300 people, and most of them were in the age, we didn't have an age barrier, but it so happened that the sample that we could get was between the ages of 20 to 35. That was the majority of them. So we went ahead and asked them, like, do you currently have a life ambition set in your life? Right? We call it a life ambition because we don't want it to be something really short term, like I want to get a car or I want to get into university, right? So it's, do you really have a life ambition? And guess what? We found majority of them do. About 70% of the population we studied had a life ambition currently, 30% didn't. And so 30% is significant. There is a proportion of the population that does not have an ultimate aim in their life. They just take it as it comes. So, you know, if you ask me personally, and our organization view, which we'll also cover, is that if you have a goal, it gives you a direction. You don't necessarily need to get hung up on it. I do another coaching called Life Path Planning. We have a video for that as well where I elaborate that a bit more. But it's okay if you don't, because we find people who don't have a life ambition take life as it comes. They're less stressed. And they're able to adapt to whatever challenges that throws at them. But if you have a goal, it kind of gives you a direction, it gives clarity on what you need to do and so on. So, but we were interested in that 30% population, the 30% that does not have a life ambition. And we went ahead and asked that group of people, well, do you want to have a life ambition, right? Do you want or you don't want to? Guess what? 90% of that population, 90% of 30%, wanted to have a life ambition, but they couldn't get one. It was only a mere 10% that didn't, you know what, I don't have a goal today, I'm not planning on setting one for my whole life, right? So I'm going to be that minority of people that does not set a life ambition. 90% of the population said they did want one, but they were not able to get it. So, you know, in my experience, even before we started Kenzenray, was while I was talking to people, I used to ask, why is it that you're not able to set a life ambition? And some of the themes that used to come up was either, number one, they have too many interests, right? Or they really don't know what they're great at. So we had a couple of close-ended questions where you do some multiple choice answer. We asked people, you know, what is preventing you from setting a life ambition? Is it that you don't have, you have too many interests, or you don't have enough time to give it enough thought? You have not received guidance on the matter, or you don't know what you're really great at? And we allow people, the respondents, to check one or more, right? And the number one thing when we started this and when we rank ordered these 4 responses was the majority of the people ticked the option that says, I really don't know what I'm great at, right? This really emphasizes the need of an increased self-awareness that can help people grow in their life. People really don't know what they're great at, where their strengths and talents lie. It's that self-discovery that's really, really important to nail down. The second thing was, I have too many different interests. Well, you need focus there. The third one was that I haven't received enough guidance on the matter. And the last option was the fact that they didn't have enough time to give it enough thought. That was a small population that actually checked that box, which kind of tells you that people are concerned about where they're heading. People are concerned about what their life goals are. It's just that they're having a barrier to discover what it is. And so that was a very interesting study on the population that did not have a life ambition set. Most of them felt that they don't know what they're great at, and 90% of that population did want to discover what their life ambition should be. So we talked about the population that didn't have a life ambition. That was 30% of the population that we studied. a majority of them, 70%, said they do have a life ambition. We have kind of captured what those are. We'll be sharing those in a moment. But then some of the quantitative questions that we studied was how long do people set their goals are? Like we asked them, how confident are you in achieving this goal within what period of time? Is it less than 5 years? Is it 5 to 10 years, or 10 to 15 years, or 15 years or more? Not surprisingly, but I mean, you would easily guess it, but it's just good to have it based on some study that we found most people, more than 60%, I think it's 33% of the population that set goals less than 5 years, even though it was a life ambition, but it's okay. That's how people think. 32% set their goal within 5 to 10 years, and the rest of them were over 10 years. So a majority of the population, 64% of that population, said that they set their goals within 5 to 10 years, which is I think a very logical step. It's very hard to predict the future so far out, but it was just interesting to see how people set their goals. I have my own goals when I'm going to be 45, 50, and 60. I'm not sure if they're going to work out, but it's just fun to set a vision, and it's okay to change it. But talking about change, the next question we asked was, how often has your life ambition changed? Obviously, if you look at the age group, it was between 20-year-olds to 35-year-olds, right? So you might have wanted to be Superman when you were below 10 years old, and then you wanted to be a policeman or a fireman, and then you might have changed. So how often does life ambition actually change? We haven't yet studied from our organization yet at what age do people usually start setting these goals. Anyway, that will be an interesting study to do. But given the fact that you're now a little bit in a mature age, you're a young professional, young adult, or an adult, close to middle-aged person, is how often has your life ambition changed really? It's a scale question out of 5, and we found when we took an aggregate of it all, it didn't change much at all. So most people, the score that we got was, I think, 2.02 out of 5 was the overall response on that scale of that population. So which basically means people are ready, and they do change it, but not that often. What was interesting is also we had some demographic questions, and therefore we cut this data to see if there was any difference at all whether you're single or married. Now you got to remember this was done in India. I mean, this could change from culture to culture. We're not saying this is a representative sample of the globe. But even for India, it was the urban population we studied, and it was quite a pleasant surprise to know that there was no difference between whether you're single or married. Can you believe that, right? One of the concerns was if I'm married, I have different responsibilities. We had a good gender diversity in our population as well, but they say that life ambitions didn't change. Now we are talking about whether your goals change or not whether you are able to achieve it or not. That's a whole different matter there. We have a question on what are the challenges you face and you perceive in achieving your goal. I'll talk about that in a second. Another thing that we were interested in studying was how much of what you do today is in line with the path to achieving your life ambition, and it was a sale question. How much do you think what you do today currently feeds into achieving your goal tomorrow? And we got a response, and again, there's a full report on that. Again, you can subscribe for our journal at www.kenzenray.com. Our journal is called Vantage. It's a point of view, so you can subscribe and we can send you that report as well. But what was interesting in that study was we found that students were more expressing the fact that they're in line with their goals than self-employed people, than people who are in their job. No surprise there. But it's that the hierarchy is important. When I'm studying, I feel what I'm studying is in line with what I want to do in life. When I'm self-employed, well, fortunately, if you're a freelancer or you're having a business, it is something that you want to do. So it's in line with what you want to get into life. But being in a job was relatively, and not surprisingly, the lowest item there, that people in the job, they're saying, I may not be in the right role right now, but I just need to get by this period. So I'm there. No surprise there. The other question I wanted to ask was, what is the awareness of the next steps they need to do, right? I'm here, I have a future life ambition. What should I do next? How much are you aware of that? Again, a scale question. How much are you aware of that on a scale of 1 to 5? How confident are you of achieving it? We got a score of, I think, 3.43 for awareness and 3.84 for confidence, which means people are a little bit more confident than they are aware of their steps. Well, that's good. Good to be optimistic. But it just gives us the indication that there is scope for people to build more awareness on what they need to do next. Now, mind you, when we did this study, we found also no difference whether you're a male or female. Both male and female were almost confident and aware, almost the same level. But the awareness improved based on the level of education you had. The more educated you were, your awareness and confidence improved. If you were a graduate, or you were an undergraduate, or you were a postgraduate, or you did some advanced degrees versus when you were in school, the more you were educated, the more you were aware of your next steps and what you wanted to achieve. So then we had the open-ended question where we tried to see what ambitions people set. We coded them, and not surprisingly, a majority of the population were either I need to have my own company, entrepreneurial, or I need to grow in my job. So career growth and entrepreneurship trumped everything else. Some people said I wanted to travel, I wanted to study more, I just want to be contented with my family. Some people specifically mentioned wealth without actually an outcome of our means. Outcome using wealth as a means was not mentioned. So when we rank ordered those, about 24% of the population in this population that we studied, which is in India, which gives me a little bit of hope, is that there will be new businesses coming up and creating more jobs for people. 24% of the population we studied said they wanted to be entrepreneurial. 23% was the next group of people, they wanted job growth. Then, of course, the last point we asked was, what do you see as barriers to achieve your goal, right? And there were some very obvious ones, but a lot of people, even though even though it's a survey and we are asking respondents to respond, they were pretty honest, and I was really impressed to see people admit the fact that the number one barrier is myself. We grouped many factors for that. Some people said procrastination, some people said I don't have enough courage, I don't give it enough time, but it all seemed as though there is a self-imposed barrier to what you want to do in your life, to make you accelerate the path in achieving your life goals. Number two, not surprisingly, especially if you have stuff like entrepreneurial goals, number two was, of course, money, finance. A lack of finance thereof is a barrier in achieving my goals. Number three and fourth was society and family, and again, this may be a cultural thing that if you're married and you have kids going to school, you can't really go off into the desert for an adventure or relocate easily or risk losing your job and experiment on new ideas. That's understandable, and it's good to have. Luck, I thought luck would be something that come up, and it did come up, but it was pretty low in the population. I think it was even the bottom 3 or 4 items that we had. So from our standpoint, it was a good study that really expressed that, you know, there's a lot of stuff external that prevents you from being who you are and achieving what you want to, but a lot of it is within you, which means it's to some extent within your control that you can action upon and get started on a path toward your goal. The value of doing such studies as an organization, we are committed to put our efforts whenever the opportunity presents itself to partner with other organizations and government and non-governmental entities to do this kind of studies in a more representative population. Let's take, if you take a social study in a wider scale for a city, or even if you take a representative sample for a country, these kind of insights would tell you what is the level of hope people have in this country or city. Why do people set the goals they set? This can help organizations, government organizations, to shape up policies. We also look to partner with schools to study what kind of messages teachers send, what are the normal trends as to how the students think and set their career choices today, so that they can form a path towards achieving that goal. The last thing I would also say is that these sort of studies also help even in corporate organizations, not necessarily to look at it from a life ambition standpoint, but just asking employees, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do, right? It's the ultimate form of, caring for your employees is trying to help them reach their goals, not just evaluate them in their performance or get a satisfaction survey done, but actually trying to see what their aspirations are. And when we do it differently, if we would do it for a corporate organization or a school or a government entity, but in a corporate setting, you know, if someone wants to go travel internationally, and there might be a few who do not want to do that. Some people might look for more work-life balance. So depending on what people want, it's not that as a company you try to give them everything, but the study can give you patterns that can tailor your incentivization strategy, your recognition programs, you know, even to chart out the career growth within the organization for employees could be done. So that's what we look as an organization to support the community on.